Irish rugby stars Hugo Keenan and Stacey Flood have been unveiled as Energia's new rugby ambassadors. They're going to represent their multiple rugby partnerships from grassroots right the way through to the international stage. And this season, Energia helping fans play their part in becoming more sustainable and environmentally conscious through its Ireland's Greenest fan campaign. Delighted to say Ireland fullback Hugo Keenan joins us on the line now. Good morning to you, Hugo.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Thanks a million. Are you environmentally conscious? Are you sustainably conscious? How does that play its part in your life?
Yeah, I think everyone sort of has to. It's obviously becoming a big issue these days. So if we can all do little bits and make a small difference here and there, I think it'll go a long way. And I think Energy are great pushing that. And yeah, delighted to be working with them over the next few years.
How sick of the side of France are you?
Yeah, still haven't gotten over it. I'm not going to lie. No, it was a very disappointing one now on the weekend. So it's sort of tough when you have a few days off. We're not into camp until tomorrow. Sometimes you just want to get that review over and done with and take the learning so that you can just move on. So it was a tough game now, and we're all bitterly disappointed. But at the same time, there's plenty still to play for in this competition, and I think we'll come together, have 2 good days now, and then it'll be all the focus will be on Italy and trying to get the maximum points in that game, and then for the rest of the Six Nations, and see where that leaves us at the end. What's
it like when you have those few down days, you haven't got the training ground to get back onto, when you're left to kind of stew on it, I suppose, a small bit? Are you obsessing about it now? Like, are you thinking about if only this and if only that? Because it was a game of fairly fine margins.
Unfortunately, you probably do. Yeah. It's you try not to. You try switch off and distract yourself from it. It's nice getting back home, meeting a friend or two, and distracting yourself in that regard. But it does linger with you a bit, I'm not going to lie. It's been a tough couple of days, but watched the game back twice already, and I've got a good idea of what's gone wrong. But looking forward to getting into camp tomorrow and getting feedback from the coaches and the other lads, and seeing what we have to improve on, because I think that's the exciting thing, really, that we didn't really play that well, to be honest, and we were only 3 points away from beating sort of the informed side in World Rugby at the moment. And I don't think there's much of a tougher place to go than Paris these days, with that crowd behind them, and then with that confidence at the moment as well.
Are you watching the game back over the last couple of days, Hugo, in like your own capacity, just almost out of curiosity to kind of, I guess, answer some questions that you initially had, or was that a directive from the team?
No, it's all down to you. Whether I presume most people would. I think you don't really get to, I suppose, international level without reviewing yourself pretty rigorously, and so yeah, maybe looking at what I could have done better personally, but then also how we can improve as a team and as a back line, and even as a unit in the back three and stuff. So you try come in with a point of view for tomorrow, and give a bit of feedback on what you're feeling and what you were sort of thinking in the game, and looking back at it now.
That's really interesting, because I often had it down as like a sort of Clockwork Orange scenario where the coaches would almost force you to sit back and watch it. But clearly you've been proactive about this. What do you gain, or what do you learn in the second rewatch that you don't see in the first rewatch?
It like when you're in the moment, it happens so quickly. Obviously, you can't get that bird's eye view of things. You'd be watching from wide angles. You'd be watching from in close, and there's a lot to take away with it, especially from when you lose. And that's probably the one good aspect of it, is that you can take so many learnings from it, that you'll analyze it in even more detail, that you'll go over it again. You'll ask yourself all these questions of why you did that, why you didn't do something else. So it's just part of the game now, and I'm sure most of the other team will do the same. I actually met up with Gary and Robbie on Monday, and we watched the game back together to sort of get other lads' feedback on it, and I suppose go through a bit of pain together. It sometimes helps.
Are you critiquing each other during that conversation?
No, in fairness, the two lads are harsh on themselves, and I think most are. So I think people are quite good at putting their hands up when they've made a mistake or haven't seen something. But it's also learning from them and what you can do better and how you can improve and what to do, I suppose, in the next time in those situations.
Does that mean that by the time you get into the group setting, Hugo, that you've kind of made your peace with what's going on? Is there anything in the group setting then that's sort of typically surprising you, or are you like, yeah, I know that one, yeah, no, I've seen that?
There is a bit of that, yeah. You know what's going to come, but I suppose that's the beauty of having great coaches in our camp, and that they'll see different things from their perspectives and from, I suppose, a coach's eyes. And I'm sure I might have missed a few things watching it back that Catty or Faz will pick up on. So no, you never know everything going into meetings, and there'll be some things you might think will pop up and they'll critique and they might not, and other things you might have thought you've done all right and they'll be nitpicking. So it's a bit of a balance.
What was the one thing that you watched that you thought, if I could just put that back in the can?
I think we all know that answer on just that last play. If I had my time back, obviously, probably would have ran it, but I don't think I fully committed to that kick, because I probably knew deep down it probably wasn't the right thing to do, so ended up putting in a poor one. So yeah, that's probably the one big regret and the one thing I've been kicking myself most about over the last couple of days.
I was going to ask if it was easy to sort of put it in the bin, but if you've been kicking yourself about it, you probably answered that already. Is there any, because it's not a systems error, right? It's it's the sort of thing that you go, if I did that 9 times out of 10, I'm going to do that the right way. How do you, is there anything to learn out of that or to address out of that? Because it's not necessarily a systems issue. It's just obviously something that went wrong in that minute. Yeah,
it's just a decision making, I suppose. It's just staying calm in those pressured moments, and you just got to learn from these and make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's really it. Yeah.
Outside of the likes of us obviously asking you about it, you mentioned your friends and family earlier on. Do they know well enough to just leave clear now, or is there still, have you got to do the obligatory, oh look, it could have gone a different way, or how do you manage that?
Exactly, yeah. No, they've been all right to me. In fairness, I was probably lucky enough that my parents didn't get back from France until yesterday. They made a long weekend out of it, so they weren't around too much to annoy me. But I went for a walk with the old man last night and the dog, so we chatted a small bit about it. But they know not to pester me too much about it, but at the same time want to see how I'm feeling and always have the best intentions for me. And and then the friends will give me a bit of a slag, and they always try to keep me grounded, and there's no better men to do it. So it's good having that though as well.
Do you read much of their, or watch or listen to much of the reaction, or are you trying to cause it yourself away from it?
To be honest, no, I don't. I try just ignore it all, whether positive or negative. You might have one or two people sending it on to you on WhatsApp, and you'll give them a thumbs up emoji or something. Yeah. But no, you just can't get into that. It'll affect your mindset, just what you're thinking, and I suppose just in the long run you're better off not doing it. So no, I'll take the opinions of the people in camp, the coaches, the players, and the people close to me. So that's what really matters, and try learn off them, and improve myself then.
Yeah, being polite and dismissive all at once is a skill in itself. We haven't really had a chance to chat to you very much, Hugo, since you've come in, but it's been incredible, really, over the last couple of years, how quickly you've made that fullback shirt your own. And there's been nobody really having a great conversation about sort of life post Rob Kearney almost. It's just a given that you're there, and the quality of the job obviously that you're doing. What was it always fullback for you, or was there a bit of switching around coming up through the grades?
No, there's a bit of switching. I started out in Blackrock as a 10 up until about 4th year in school, and I was never really on any of the good teams, to be honest. And then a coach in 5th year moved me to fullback and wing, and I suppose that's sort of where I found my feet, and finally got into that Blackrock team in 6th year, and played SCT then, and then it sort of just kicked on from there, and I've always stayed in the back three. I suppose did my time with the sevens, where I played a bit out half there as well, which sort of just feeds into the skills, I suppose, needed in the 15s game, which was great. So there's a bit of chopping and changing, but no, fullback would be my favourite position. But if I'm needed to be stuck out in the wing, I'll happily do it.
How much does playing fullback get helped by the fact that you do have a bit of experience at out half? Because there's always this conversation about, dual playmakers and, moving someone at 10 back to 15. I guess to a point you've got that experience at 10, and I presume it helps your understanding of what you need to do as a 15.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the game's come to the point where you can't really rely on your out half to be making every decision, to be getting every ball going through his hands. And I think that's something we've been working on in Leinster and Ireland in terms of the outside backs, centres, back three, I suppose, getting our hands on the ball and being able to slot in first receiver when needs be. So I think it definitely did help that experience playing there in the sevens. I know it's obviously a different game, but and then also in training, that you're always encouraged just to slot in wherever's seen fit. And I think it's something that I've been trying to improve on, and I still need a good bit of work to catch up on the likes of Joey and Sexto and Jack, because they're just a different level at that first receiver playmaking at the moment, aren't they?
What's the bit of fullback that you enjoy most, Hugo? It's such a varied position, isn't it? What's the bit that you're like, that gets the juices going the most?
I suppose there's a bit of freedom when I enjoy it when there's any turnover ball. You can see the whole picture coming from the backfield. You're sprinting onto it, and it's a bit of excitement because you can see the space, whether it's in the backfield, whether it's out wide, whether it's in and around the ruck. So that, and then I suppose I like the aerial side of the game. It's all those competes. I think it's gone such an important aspect of the game at the moment. I think South Africa have sort of dominated and brought that sort of game plan onto teams, and some have followed sort of that contestable kicks, and I suppose that's your bread and butter as a fullback and something I enjoy, and was lucky enough to see Rob Kearney dominate those airs and learn off him for years, and hopefully try to do the same there.
Yeah, you were 10, I think, when he came into, if my maths are correct, when he made his Ireland debut, which is incredible. Was he a guy that you were looking at, like you mentioned about your career through the grades of Blackrock? Was he a player that you were looking at? Is he somebody that you would have tried to emulate, or were there others?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like there was always him. He's had such a successful career, like probably the most successful in Irish rugby. So you're always striving to emulate that, and such a good player in his heyday. There's also Ben Smith from New Zealand, who I also just loved watching, that sort of versatility, sort of free-flowing rugby player. So he was always someone I admired and tried to, I suppose, base my game around as well.
Was the pace, the raw pace, always there, Hugo? Was that essentially why you get moved back to fullback in the school days?
I suppose there's a bit in my family. My older brother would have been a bit of a sprinter. So I think he still holds the Blackrock College record for 100 meters. He probably still claims he's faster than me, even though he's an accountant working 9 to 5. But so I suppose there was a bit of a natural, I suppose, sprint ability. Yeah, but I think that came sort of later in my days and in school. But I still think I've got a bit of catching up to do with the likes of Rob Balakoon and stuff in camp.
Yeah, your brother would say that accountants can be speedy as well. I mean, that's just to tar them all with the one brush. Is there a point where you start working on that? Because obviously you need to have the raw ingredient of being naturally fast to be a great runner on the pitch. But is there a technique that you add on? Is there a specific bit of training that you do to add the icing on the cake?
I think we're lucky enough to have like such good S&C staff and whatnot in the provinces, in both in Leinster and in Ireland. Like they're all highly qualified in like plyometrics, and we've Jason Cowman in Ireland and Joe McGinley, but then even Nick Winkleman's done a bit of work with the sevens team and 15s on natural actually sprinting mechanics. So I think sevens helped me in that regard, sort of opening up, and I suppose using your speed to the best of the ability. So I suppose it's been a gradual process knowing,
When the mechanics of sprinting are brought into that 7 setup, are there a lot of lads who are like, oh God, I've been running incorrectly for quite some time and I'm not getting the most out of myself?
There is, but like, I don't think you're going to change someone's natural running style like overnight or even over a year, to be honest. Like, it's very hard to change things you've been doing since you've been 4 or 5 or whenever you've been able to run. So it's a long process. So it's probably little small cues on how to become a bit more explosive, how to get a bit tidier on your mechanics, which you can work on and hopefully add that little extras. But I don't think you'll be seeing anyone change their running style dramatically. My arms will still be flailing all over the place.
You do have a unique style, don't you?
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, by the way. That's not.
No. I get a bit of slagging for it, so I'm well used to it.
Is that's just been your style since you were a kid, and that's?
Yeah, it is what it is. I suppose it's probably not the most technically efficient way of doing it, but as I was saying, it's hard to change something you've been doing for years and years.
Did you played a bit of football when you were younger? Is that right?
Yeah. So it was soccer. So that was always sort of my first love. Played up until I was about 17, always with Mount Marion. So a lot of my mates from school are all big soccer heads. They're all still playing for the local football team. And still love it. Still a Chelsea fan. So bit tough to watch at the moment, but love it.
Was that ever an option for you, or was it just something to do to?
No, I was never going to kick on to that next level. And then sort of being in a school like Blackrock, rugby is always the main sport. And sort of when I started pushing on with rugby in 5th and 6th year, I sort of put the soccer to a side and wanted to focus on that because I suppose grow up watching these Leinster teams be successful, these Irish teams, and you just want to, I suppose, give a shot at that.
Yeah. Were you, what position were you?
I was the centre mid, but to my reluctance, as I got a bit older, I was moved back into centre back, and that's where I sort of finished out my career.
Like a reverse Paul McGrath situation.
Exactly.
Do you get over to Chelsea at all?
I've only been away one away game. I've done a stadium tour recently. There's a few supporters in Leinster and Ireland. Luke McGrath, James Ryan claims to be a Leinster supporter, even though he knows nothing. And one of the physios. So we said we'd try get over for a game, but there's always a clash with rugby, unfortunately, just with the seasons aligning. But yeah, it's on the to-do list.
Yourself, Luke, and James Ryan would be of the perfect age, I assume, to have just hopped on the Chelsea bandwagon once Abramovich took over. That's what happened here, right?
I'll give you that much for James, but in fairness, me and Lukey, I think, might have been influenced by our parents. My old man and younger brother is a Chelsea man, so I'd like to think I'm not a bandwagoner, even though it's been a few good times recently. Are
you, if you were to have gone down that route, would you have been? Who would Hugo Keenan, the soccer player, have responded better to? Would have been like a Jose or an Ancelotti or a Tuchel?
I was always a big Jose fan, in fairness.
Oh yeah.
Well, just the entertainment he gives you, doesn't he? Yeah. He's some character. I'm sure working with him might be a bit trickier than that.
Who's closer to Jose, Leo Cullen or Andy Farrell?
Oh, geez, I don't want to be getting myself in trouble, so better not answer that.
This is where you need to be dismissive and polite, Hugo. Well, look at thanks, Billy, for chatting to us over the last 20 minutes or so. Your career has really been an unbelievable thing to watch over the last couple of years. I'm sure there's plenty more to come as well. It's Hugo Keenan, along with Stacey Flood, unveiled as Energia's new rugby ambassadors, representing their multiple rugby partnerships from grassroots right through to the international stage. This season, Energia helping fans play their part in becoming more sustainable and environmentally conscious through its Ireland's Greenest Fan campaign. Hugo, thanks a million.
Cheers, Adrian Owen. Thanks a million. Thanks for having me.